Everyone, today I'm going to introduce you to Drew White. If you're on LinkedIn, he's the upside down guy. If you ever seen his profile. But anyway, Drew is in Infinity Banking Concept, but I'll let kind of Drew explain all that. So Drew, kind of go back to your history a little bit, where you started to what you do now.
Yeah. Hey, and thank you for having me on and letting me speak to your audience. So my background is I was a pediatric nurse for 10 years. I had, and that's kind of when my whole journey started. I had $150,000 plus in student loan debt. And so that, I didn't really know anything about money at that point. And my dad, being the good dad he was a little concerned, sat me down and was like, hey, we need to talk about setting a budget, which I had never heard of a budget before, so sits me down, teaches me about a budget and shows me a little Dave Ramsey stuff that he knew. He knew a little bit of Dave. And so I'm not as big of a Dave fan now. I did do Dave's way to get out of debt. But what I always tell people is I can't, even though I don't love his principles, he got me kickstarted on my financial journey. So I did many things probably that would be too long to talk about today, but I flipped some mobile homes and provided financing or notes for mobile homes to kind of get started into real estate. And then around that time, I found what you mentioned that I do today, which is teach people how the infinite banking concept. Also, another phrase for it is becoming your own banker. And and my profile on LinkedIn's upside down because it's a little bit upside down from the traditional financial world. So there you have it.
Awesome, Drew. So yeah, I mean, not only his profile is upside down, but he has a lot of fun posts. So, kind of follow him, you get a lot of info there. So Drew, with that being said, following you and all, with your Infinity Banking Concept or whatever else you can help people with, since you have some real estate experience and all, who can you help and who would you like to connect?
Yeah. So I work a lot with real estate investors. That's some of my main clientele, and also business owners. And some of the reason is that a lot of people in those fields are thinking a little bit more long term, which infinite banking requires a little bit of a shift in that mindset to think long term and not so instant gratification. In reality, I can help anybody with this and show them how to do it. But that's really mainly who I work with is business owners and real estate investors as well.
Awesome. Hey, by the way, I am in an Infinity Banking Concept, but not with Drew because I met somebody before Drew. So
yeah, no problem.
but he knows them, so they're kind of the same similar group. But I personally can vouch for it. I really like it. I mean, I just started it, but I like the concept. It's awesome. So if you haven't heard about it, reach out to Drew or whoever else, but reach out to Drew, because he's sharing that with you. So reach out and talk to him and see if it's a fit for you. So, all right, awesome, Drew. And I'll share whatever links I have for Drew, his website or whatever I can find, Drew gives me, I'll post it. So you can go research or do your due diligence before you reach out to Drew if you want to do that.
Yeah.
All right, awesome, Drew. So obviously you've done a few things. Now you're doing, I know we talked about things you want to do, but right now, what inspires you to get up and do what you do every day?
Yeah. So I'm sure a lot of people say this, but I am very family driven. That's really my motivation. So when for me, like to get a little bit further in that story, one of the reasons I quit being a pediatric nurse, I enjoyed what I did, but what I quickly realized I wasn't married yet. I didn't have kids yet. But for me, having to miss even my like nieces and nephews' sporting events on weekends, and I just didn't realize I was going to be working weekends and holidays the rest of my life. It sounds stupid, but I was a stupid 18-year-old when I decided that, to be a nurse. And so I just hadn't thought through that, and so when I realized that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is not what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I got to find a way out. And so that's kind of like, I've just always known I'm really very family oriented and focused and wanting to, I would say clear the waters downstream for my kids. Right. And so leave them better than I started with. And so, or at least get a little bit less mud in those waters that are there, but so for me, it's really comes down to family, my wife and kids. And also I've been kind of thinking through this a lot lately about this thing of like, what is happiness? And I've heard Tony Robbins says it's like, happiness is making progress. And so for me, the other thing is I like growing and I like improving and learning. And so, yes, there's a family side to it, but also me personally, I just really enjoy growth and trying different things and being like, I don't know if I can flip a mobile home, but I'm going to try it, So that's another thing for me is also growth. I just enjoy that whole process of trying something new and that feeling of overcoming a tough obstacle.
Awesome. Yeah, no, Tony Robbins says fulfillment comes through progress, not by a goal. So
yeah,
no, that's a great story. Yeah, personally, I attest to that. I am a subscriber to that theory too.
Yeah.
So, awesome. All right, so you have done several different things, from nurse to real estate to now IB, infinite banking. I'm sure you have a lot of tips. You mentioned Tony Robbins, so I'm sure you obviously have read books or listened to podcasts and all that stuff. So you have probably several tips that work for you, but you can only share one. So what's the one tip that you can share that has worked for you?
I haven't read a book or two in my life, but you know what? The biggest tip that I've been telling people that's helped me in this past year that I learned last year, and I have not read this book, but I learned the concept from someone else in our group, in our infinite banking group, is the gap and the gain. And that one has been huge for me. And I shared that actually just with my friends this week too. And I'll go over it for anybody that doesn't know it. But, so the gap is where I am now, right now, today, and where I want to be, my vision of the future of future Drew and Kate and my kids. And so, sometimes because we're not where we want to be yet, right? It's this vision, and that vision changes too. As you get closer to it, it can change, right? So you almost can never truly get to that vision. But so the gap is, if you live in that of where I am now and where I want to be, it can make you feel like I'm not enough, or I should be doing this, I should be doing that, right? And you kind of get hard on yourself and you get upset and down. But the gain is actually when you measure from where you are right now and where you were before. Yep. And you already know it. So for me, I measure back and say, well, where was I 10 years ago, right? I was a pediatric nurse, $150,000 in debt. I was making like 35,000 a year, but look, to where I am now and what I teach and show people, and I've come a long ways. And you can do it, even measure it where you were last week or where you were at the start of the year. But when you do that, you see your progress, and how far you've come, and you don't get so caught up in the fact that you're not there yet. I'm not quite there. And that doesn't mean don't have goals and don't have vision and all that, but it just means, you're not, you can feel like you never measure up, and like you're not ever going to be there, or you're not, you're just not measuring up, and you feel like I should be doing this, and I should be doing that. And so having those goals, having that vision is good, but living in that gap can cause a lot of issues. And for me, that's a lot of times when I realize like I'm getting hard, or I'm like down on myself and being hard on myself, is that like I'm living in that gap of like, oh man, I want to be doing this, so that's been a huge tip for me that hopefully helps other people.
Awesome. Yeah, great book. I actually follow those principles. I've read it. And I follow every day you write down 3 things.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And 3 things that you accomplished.
Yeah.
So that way you can measure it. And it's an amazing, it was a life changer. Every year I read 1 or 2 life changer books. Last 3 years. And this year that was one of the books, life changer.
Yeah. I do those 3 things too. I write down the 3 that awesome. Every day.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, there you go. So great tip by Drew. You got to, if you haven't read it. But more importantly, if you want to connect with Drew, he's a great networker, great guy to talk to. Apart from knowing, getting knowledge about IBC, maybe whatever else he can help you with, he'll probably help you with. So reach out to him. I'll post his links and connect with him. So again, Drew, thanks for taking the time, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.